All right, Centerpoint family, I am so excited to jump on the podcast today and introduce to you guys a friend of mine, as well as someone who has been instrumental in some of my leadership development over the years. Dr. Bill Purvis led Cascade Hills Church in Columbus, Georgia for 36 years. I actually was living in Columbus for some time, attended Cascade Hills when I was in high school and moved around, moved away, ended up getting off track, but eventually got called to ministry, reconnected with Bill, and jumped into his mentorship program. And I have never been the same since. So I'm excited to dive into the topic of the path to growth and godly leadership today. Pastor Bill, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you, Kyle, for inviting me. I'm honored always, anytime I get a chance to be with you. And so hopefully I'll say something today that may be meaningful, but I am just gracious. I'm grateful that you would have me on.
Absolutely. So glad. And I want to give a shout out. If you've not read Pastor Bill's book, Make a Break for It, it is like a leadership manual. And so hopefully some of the things that we jump in today will get you excited about leadership. And I would make that as an easy next step. Maybe jump on Amazon, look up the book, Make a Break for It. It'll give you a lot more to dig into, and hopefully it'll get you on the same leadership journey that I've been on for so long, and I'm excited to be on for the rest of my life. So I figured this first question will connect very well with that topic there, which is, Pastor Bill, what were some of the pivotal moments early in your ministry? We know that your church started with 32 on Easter Sunday, and by the time 2015 rolled around, it was at 10,000, and God took you guys through such a journey. So it always takes me to the idea of what early on in your ministry made you realize that personal growth would be a lifelong pursuit that would spill over into your ministry rather than just a seasonal activity.
Yeah, great question, Kyle. And honestly, I think probably what it led back to is I saw the difference in life, and we all do, between people who are really passionate about life. You know, they had a goal and they wanted to reach it. And then there were people who were just kind of coasting or drifting through life. And I wanted to know what the difference was. And I knew that to reach a higher level of people that I wanted to reach, I also knew that I had to grow. And so if I didn't, I'd never connect with them. And then I realized that if I had to grow, I had to start putting people or books or people, things in my life that would help me to stretch. And so leadership for me became one of those things that the more I did it, the more I created an appetite for it. And the more I did it, the more impact it made. And then the more I did that, it just kept growing. And so I even created out of that, as you know, BP leadership. And basically I did it for the church, which was, I wanted to create a pipeline of leaders. I wanted to make sure that I had, if you know, in a baseball or football team, they always have a second string. And I wanted to have, if somebody died or somebody left, I wanted to have other leaders already ready to step in. So I created a leadership program called BP Leadership. And that became well accepted, and people embraced it and grew. And then it went beyond that to places where pastors like you across the country and business leaders began to use that as another tool in their box to help them grow. And so I just found that leadership for me, you know, in the spiritual gifts in Romans 12, when it talks about, and some have administration, that is the gift of leadership.
Yes.
So I wanted to find all the people I had that had the gift, or those that needed to know more about that gift, and try to see if we couldn't put us all together.
Were there certain individuals that saw that in you that kind of called it out and helped you to see it so that you could begin to, walk in that gift?
Yeah, there were certain times people noticed it in my life. When I was early on in high school, I remember when I was a freshman, I didn't get much playing time then, and was playing football, and they were just, the other team was just killing us one night. I mean, they'd knocked, this guy was a fullback, they'd take out the senior, then they took out the junior. And I remember a coach that started saying, "Bill Purvis, where's Bill Purvis?" And I was almost hiding from him, don't call me. And he looked at me and he said, Bill, they need you. He said,
Yeah.
it's not just the skill. He said, they need you to motivate this team. And
Mm.
I went out there in the huddle. I remember my words. I'm just a little kid there. I'm looking at all these seniors and I'm saying, stop looking at the scoreboard. It's a whole new game. Let's play from here. And we
Amen.
really made a rebound. I remember that. And then I remember that John Maxwell, as I got to be in ministry, he
Mhm.
looked out in the room one time and he called me out. And he said, I noticed the way you carried yourself. I noticed how the people came to you. And he said, I want to get to know you. And then he began to mentor me. But I think for me, Kyle, it was something that I almost felt out of place or awkward around people that had no vision, or people
Yeah.
can't do this, or that's impossible. And that used to frustrate me. I'd say, oh, let's try it. Somebody ever tried it? And when I found out that it's a spiritual gift also, it gave me permission to say, okay, I'm normal after all. Let's go do
There
it.
you
So
go.
that's good. Yeah.
Amen. And maybe there's some people watching that you feel that way because that resonates with me quite a bit. Like you're the odd man out, or you're just excited about big things in life, and you can't find yourself really clicking with ordinary conversations. That might not be a sign that something's wrong with you. It might be a sign that something's right with you. And
That's
so
right.
hopefully
That's
that'll be an encouragement to you today.
Yeah, and you remember Joseph in the Bible. His brothers didn't see what he saw, and David, his brothers didn't see what God
Yeah.
saw. And so it's true for any of those that may wonder, I just don't connect this well in some of this group. Maybe you're in the wrong group.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with you. You just got to get in the right spot.
Amen. And
Yeah,
a simple place to go for those watching, because not everybody will get to into this video, but maybe I can get you right now to jump on bpleadership.com. There's a whole archive of lessons there. And I think that there's going to be a lot of people who say, you know what, that makes sense, what you're saying. And I need some practical next steps. So jump on there. The lessons are 20 to 30 minutes long. I've listened to them over and over again, and they've helped me to become a leader. And maybe that will spark you today. I want to jump into the next question. How have you stayed hungry for growth through seasons of both success and struggle? And what has helped you guard against complacency?
yeah. I think part of it has been this. It's kind of like when people work out or exercise or run, maybe they do it to get their blood pressure down or something. After that, the more they start doing it, the more their body starts to embrace it, the more they like doing it, and the
Mm,
more they develop a new skill. And then when they start to get unhealthy or they break the habit, they'll say, I felt better when I was
mm,
doing that. I found the same for leadership. I found that the more I'm reading and growing, the more I'm around people that are growing, the more I'm thinking about things that are possible and trying it, the more it creates in me even more. And now
yeah.
it's kind of it's a bad word people use, but to me, I'll embrace it. I'm addicted to it now.
There you go.
There was a time that I would say, "Oh, I got to learn something else," or what. But now it's like I'm hungry for it. And so
Yeah.
I think even in the low times, if you can say, I need to just learn more and grow more and get out of this. And on
Yeah.
the high times, to say, okay, what can I learn from this? And I think it's a good question to evaluate every season of your life. What am I learning through this? How am I growing? How do I respond? And basically, if you can get to know yourself, you
Mm,
don't really know what's in you until you've been tested or until you've gone through things. So
yeah.
put it in when the test time comes, you'll be surprised as it comes out. And you'll say, I really have much more tools than I realize. So
Yeah, absolutely.
that's the way to do it.
So does that connect also? I've heard you say before that the moment that we stop growing is the moment when the price to grow becomes too much to pay.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you felt like you came up against those price points, I guess you could call it, was it the passion that made you keep paying the price? What kept you being willing to pay the price that some others weren't willing to pay?
Yeah. I think it comes down to desire or the want to. If you really have the want to, you'll find a way. And I always said, even with, as I led a staff and things like that, I would say, I can give you all the tools. I can tell you where to get the tools. I can put you in the right position. I can give you everything except one thing. I cannot give you the desire. I
Yeah.
can't want to. That want to has to be on their end.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of what I really had to learn on my own. And then we
Yeah.
talk about the price to pay. People will get off your journey at times. I've had
Yeah.
some great people, I love them, but as the church grew, some people would leave. And I used to have people say, well, Bill, has anybody ever left your church? And the answer is yes. And sure, they're going to leave. That's okay. And the question on that is, who's leaving? Is it
Yeah.
the people that want to grow or the people that don't want to grow?
Yeah.
And so I would evaluate that. But I realized as I look back, most people they'll go as far as they can until the price to pay for further growth is too high. They say,
Yeah.
I'm going to do that. You remember Jesus when he was calling some to him? There were three excuses people made. One of them said, "Well, I bought some land and I got to go
Yeah.
check it out." And the other one said, "Well, I bought some ox and I got to go check it out." And the third one was henpecked. They said, "Well, I married a wife." So they just found an excuse to not go further. And
Yeah.
so he is going to be, don't let your excuse become your lid.
Yeah.
If you embrace the excuse and accept the excuse, the problem is you'll stop your growth.
Yeah. That's good stuff. So, as you've grown through different seasons of both numerical growth at the church, leadership growth in terms of staff and personal growth, what are some of the warning signs when a leader's growth starts to slow down, and especially when pride begins to creep in? How have you guarded against that over the years?
Yeah. Well, the pride thing is a lot of little illustrations from nature I can use. One is if you ever see a turtle on a fence post, one thing, somebody put it there. It didn't
Yeah.
get it by itself. So you got to realize if you ever get somewhere in life, other people helped you. And
Yeah.
we can't pop the buttons on our coat and say, look at me. There's an old joke about the woodpecker one time out in Seattle where they got the big trees. And the woodpecker was pecking on this tree and lightning hit the tree at the same time. And it hit the tree and the woodpecker was dazed and fell on the ground. But 15 minutes later, the woodpecker comes back with 10 other woodpeckers and says, look, boys, that's the one I split right there. The pride thing, I call it the pride ride. You have to realize that I'm blessed, but I'm
Mm,
not proud. I'm grateful, and I do believe that gratitude is what keeps you stable. Um,
yeah.
you cannot be angry, you can't be prideful, you can't be you can't be doing a lot of things. Gratitude is like Clorox; it washes that out. The more
Amen.
grateful you are, the more I think pure you can be, and I think more you can do. And so it's kind of like when you see these football players and they score a touchdown.
Mhm.
I remember Pat Dye over at Auburn. Uh, he told these boys one time. He said, "When you score a touchdown, don't act like it's the first time you ever did it." He said,
Yeah.
and there's also another. And John Wooten taught this in basketball. I thought it was beautiful. He said, when you go down the field and the guy passes you the ball and you score, he said, as you go back up the court, always point to the guy that passed you the ball.
Yes.
And when he said that, one of the players said, well, coach, what if he's not looking? He said, no, he'll always be looking. Even today, you'll see basketball players do that. That's what
Yeah.
the point in saying, I wouldn't have been able to have the ball had you not handed it to me. So
Amen.
and the pride thing can be a killer in any career,
Yeah.
and you have to make sure I don't want to let that get in. I don't want to let that be a part of my life, and always remember where you came from. And I think
Yeah.
that gives you a good perspective.
When you were under a leader and maybe disagreed with the direction they were going, or maybe some of the decisions that were being made, how did you guard against pride in that kind of a context where you just remained humble and not critical of the decisions, but still found a place to learn from both their good decisions and their bad decisions?
I had to realize a couple of things. One is they're the leader. So that they're the leader, period. And
Yeah.
so I have to know they are privy to things I'm not. They've
Yeah.
been in rooms and heard conversations I haven't heard. They know the landscape better than I know.
Yeah.
Whatever reason, God put me there, so I'm a part of their team. And my
Yeah.
goal is, if I can't, if I can't help you, I'll never hurt you. And
Yeah. That's good.
my goal is going to be okay. And I did that with three different pastors I served under. There were times that I would privately sit down, and it was always your spirit, your tone. But I said, Pastor, I love you, and I wouldn't. I'm not questioning you, but I just want to know: is this the best, or
Yeah.
how do I get on board with this? Because here's what I see, and
Yeah.
and I found that in most every problem, Kyle, if you can communicate, you can get on the same page a lot easier. And so
Yeah.
I'd walk out. Sometimes they'd say, "Thank you, Bill. I hadn't thought of that." Sometimes they'd say, "Bill, I have thought of it, but here's why." And sometimes they'd just say, "We're going to do it anyway." It
Yeah.
didn't matter. Once I got it off my chest, I knew then if it fails, it's on him. If it succeeds, it's on him. I did my part and I expressed my part, and I grew even through that.
That's good. That's good stuff. So you kind of leaned into one of the key areas about fostering humility and what humble leadership looks like in terms of gratitude, especially. Was there a time in your ministry where things began to get successful and you began to maybe feel that creep in and you felt like the Lord started walking you through a daily ritual of gratefulness? Or how does someone get started in that, I guess?
Been there. And that's been an area. There's some things I've never battled with, but I remember I remember when the church really grew, and suddenly everywhere you went, everybody in town knew you, and everybody running for office would come to your church because they needed your influence. And
Yeah.
and I remember thinking, I never was proud about that, but I tell you where I kind of had it in my face. I would get invitations to conferences and to speaking engagements in on the panel with these well-known megachurch pastors.
Yeah.
I would look at the brochure too long. I would put my picture right there, and I'd saved it. And I remember one day I said, Bill, why are you doing that? God knows that you're there. And who are you? What are you holding it for? To tell
Yeah.
your family and friends, look who all I preach with. And so I'm taking that file and throwing it away and saying, I don't want to. And I do know this. I'm not impressed with me because I
Yeah.
know me too well.
That's good.
So, but if you ever sit yourself leaning over there, if you like the applause, if people applaud you, that's fine. Just when you get along with God, give him credit.
Yeah.
You don't want to have to stop and listen for it.
That's good.
And if you don't want to, you want to be that guy. I'm not the most humble guy I want to be, but I heard about the guy one time that was at church, and they gave him a badge for being the most humble man in the church. Then they took it away because he started wearing it around. So it's kind of like, what I mean? There's another guy they joke about. They say, he said he wrote a book called Humility and How I Achieved It. so, so I think you have to be aware that's a road that doesn't lead to anything but problems.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Uh, my wife says this about pride. She says, Bill, pride doesn't look good on anybody. She said, I
That's
don't
right.
know who you are, pride don't look good on anybody. So
Are there any other warning signs that you would point out in terms of just signs that pride is trying to creep in and that gratitude and humility needs to be intentional?
yeah, I think sometimes you can ask even your friends around you. You
Yeah.
know, if you've got a close enough set of friends, a wife or family, you can say, if I seem to be a little too enamored with things going well, I want you to check me on it. I want you to remind me. I want you to help me. And
Hmm.
and those are things that if you battle with, the best thing is that right there. That as long as you're aware, you can get ahead of it. It's when we close our ears and say, "I'm all that." That
Yeah.
I believe that when we become unteachable, that's
Yeah.
when we become unblessable. And
That's good.
you want to watch that. Yeah.
That's huge. And that's one thing that I really learned from you early on. I think it was the standard personal growth tape that you used to put out. And I'm pretty sure it was either in that one or another one where you talked about how something clicked in you one day that you could learn something from anyone. And it
Yes.
just opened up this whole world of possibilities. So I wondered if you wanted to speak to that a little bit.
It's true. Everybody has some experience or some knowledge in areas we don't have. Our goal ought to be kind of like that hummingbird in the garden that he's just getting all he can. Get all the goods you can. And,
Yes.
and if you don't do that, you're cheating yourself. So if I see it could be the custodian or it could be a CEO. I know both of them have experiences that I haven't, and I want to learn from them about that experience and what I can get from. I'll tell you one of the things as a pastor, and you'll experience this. I do this probably 50% of the funerals I've done. I walk away and shut the door of my car and I say, I wish I had known them better
Yeah.
because the family will bring me this list. They were a prisoner of war and they did this and they went through this experience. All I knew was they were a church member. I just knew they were sitting in a pew. I just knew
Yeah.
this. But when I will read over the funeral, I'll go, wow, I didn't know what all they went through. And
Mhm.
I wish I'd have spent more time with them or known those things then, because I got
Yeah.
from that. So keep in mind that when you see people, everybody is a VIP. Everybody.
Yes.
And people will know it too, by the way, Kyle. They know they can pick it up, whether it's real love, they can pick it up whether you really care, and they can feel that. So just be teachable, loving, and kind, and you'll be surprised. You'll come away with the blessing.
Amen. That's good. So, as we kind of land this plane a little bit, I wanted to ask you some practical things, especially for the emerging generation, the younger generation that's coming up into leadership. Is there a principle or two on humility and personal growth that you would tell them, don't miss this one? If you miss all the others, don't miss this one.
Yeah, yeah. I think the number one thing is seek the Lord with all your heart. That's where your wisdom comes from. Now, you can read all the books in the world and hang out with the best people in the world, and you may get knowledge. But if you want wisdom, you get that from God. And
Yeah.
so I believe that if I can read the Bible, and I've had a habit I've used all my life, and that is there's 31 chapters in the book of Proverbs. So every day I read the chapter that corresponds with the day. It's the
Mm.
third month. I read Proverbs 3, the fourth, helps me keep up with the days of the month too.
Yeah.
But when I do that, you do that long enough, you start thinking like Solomon, and you
Yeah.
start referring. And then when a direction or a decision needs to be made, you'll remember, oh, Proverbs 3 said this. Proverbs,
Mm.
and so you stay anchored. But wisdom comes from God.
Hmm.
Make sure that be wise. It doesn't matter if you make it doesn't matter what everybody else thinks. If you're wise and you can gain wisdom, you'll have a life that will have a lot less problems. Doesn't mean there won't be some problems, but life will be much better. People, the Bible calls it, puts them in two categories: wise and fools. And
Yeah.
the path of a fool is a hard road. So if I was young, I'd say get all the wisdom you can get. Learn from, be teachable, grow, stay in that state of your mind, because if you do that, you'll look back one day, and I use it this way: you will have leapfrogged over all your friends. When you meet them 10 years later, they may be in the same place, but they'll look at you and say, how did you get there? Well, it was God that put his hand on you, and you got the wisdom to get there. So that's my advice on that.
I thought what you were saying really led me into thinking about the arrival of TikTok, the arrival of YouTube, the just social media in general, and how tempting it is for a lot of, I would say every generation, but especially the up and coming generation, to follow the kind of allure of building a platform. Um, and my concern is I've fallen into the place thinking that if we can get this many people at the church or this many followers on YouTube, that then we'll start to feel like we're making progress. But I've learned that the more influence that you get, actually, the closer to the Lord you need to be. So I
Yes.
guess I was wondering what you may say to that dynamic that seems to be really prevalent in this time and age.
I think what ought to drive you is God's more concerned about who you become than what you do. And if the vine is healthy, it'll bear the fruit on its own. And so my goal is to work on me and grow. And as a result of that, the fruit comes.
Yeah.
And the opportunity. In fact, I used to laugh about it. My son took over our, when I passed the ball 5 years ago and my son stepped in as pastor. I said, now here's what's going to happen. You're going to get a lot of distractions, and everybody's going to come meet you. They want to get from you. And I said, here's the deal. You just stay in your lane, run,
Yeah.
feed your soul. And I said, by the way, you don't have to try to publish and get a marketing campaign to let people know who you are. If you get the goods, they'll come to get them. And so
Yes.
you just take care of you. And for any of those that there is a tendency in some people that say, well, I'd like to be better known, I want to be famous and all that. If you pursue those things, they're empty. And
Yeah.
if you love the applause of men, then you will fall apart when you get the criticism of men.
That's right.
The key is if you don't let people make you that, and you let God make you, you can stay. But
Amen.
but whatever people give you, they can take away. So you want God to be the one that sets you up, and God to be the one that redirects you.
Amen. Such good stuff, and so thankful for all that we got to cover. I guess as we kind of close out, are there any final thoughts that you would feel appropriate to share with any aspiring leaders or current leaders that are tuning into the podcast?
I would say this. I would be listening to Kyle. If I were them, I would be. I've watched you grow all these years. Your people, I know they know this, but I want to reiterate it. I've seen hundreds of pastors, and I know many of them, and there's certain ones that just have what I call the mark on them. You can see they're chosen, you can see they're called, and you have that. And I would encourage everybody that's in your church and everybody that wants to grow, that to listen to you, take the journey with you. They will embrace that, because Kyle, you've taken in so much. It's now your place where you're giving out more. And I would encourage every one of them, get on the same growth journey and let them follow you and be part of your ministry. And if they do, 1 year from now, if they'll get on the journey of listening to you regularly and following what you teach, 1 year from now, they'll be a different person. And they won't want to ever go another direction. They'll want to keep going that way. So I say, you don't have to go out on the internet and find somebody you don't know that's famous and say, I want to be. My belief is this: keep your heroes close to home.
Wow.
You've seen how they're doing. You see their marriage, their kids, their faithfulness. You don't know that stranger. And so keep heroes close to home. And I would encourage everybody in your sphere of influence to listen to you and to grow with you. And so that's my word back to you, and they'll benefit for it.
Well, I'm humbled that you would say that, and I can't say enough about how you've helped me over the years, and so thankful for how you're making all of your lessons available in an archivable format. I mean, wow. I would be waiting for that CD to show up in the mail back when I first signed up, and the fact that I can go on there and jump on there and go back to a lesson I listened to 10 years ago is already amazing. But I hope people will take advantage of that as well, because you've really been a blessing to me over the years. And I'm so thankful for your time today, Pastor Bill. So I hope you guys enjoyed as well, tuning in and hearing from Dr. Bill Purvis, as well as hopefully you'll follow up on some of the suggestions I made to get connected with him and see if your leadership journey can be sparked as a result of this podcast. So we bless you and we thank you for joining this podcast, Pastor Bill, and everyone tuning in. We'll look forward to seeing you in the next one. God bless.